Elias Grant lived alone on a small space outpost called Outpost Delta 9, built on the edge of a cold, empty moon. It was not a place for most people. It was old, rusty, and forgotten by most of the galaxy. But for Elias, it was peaceful. He liked fixing old machines, drinking hot synthetic coffee, and watching the stars from his workshop window. Elias was a retired engineer from Earth. He had worked on big ships, loud cities, and powerful machines. But now, he preferred quiet. His days were slow, filled with small jobs. Other travelers came to his outpost now and then to fix their engines or recharge their ships. They paid him with credits or parts. Life was simple, and that was enough. For him. One evening, as the twin moons faded into the dark sky, Elias walked to his cargo storage to check on some damaged parts. The metal doors creaked open and he stepped inside, holding a small light. As he moved between boxes, he heard something strange, a soft sound, like breathing. But not normal breathing. It was fast and shaky. Elias stopped. He turned his light toward the corner behind a tall pile of crates. There he saw her, a small figure crouched on the floor, trying to hide in the shadows. She looked like a girl, no older than a teenager. But she was not human. Her skin was pale, almost glowing. Her eyes were large and black, without any whites. Thin arms hugged her stomach as she shivered from cold. Elias didn't move for a moment. The outpost's security system had warned him before. Don't trust strangers, especially not aliens. The system's voice would repeat it over and over. Unregistered life forms may pose a threat. But Elias looked at the girl. She didn't. Looked dangerous. She looked hungry, weak, scared. Slowly, he kneeled down. "Hey there," he said in a calm voice. "You okay?" The girl didn't answer. She just stared at him, breathing hard. "I'm not gonna hurt you," Elias said. "Are you alone?" Still no answer. But after a moment, she nodded, just once. Elias took off his jacket and placed it on the floor, then gently pushed it toward her. "Here, you're freezing." The girl looked at the jacket, then at Elias. Slowly, she reached out with shaking fingers and pulled it around herself. She held it tight, as if it were a treasure. "What's your name?" Elias asked. The girl whispered something. It was hard to hear. He leaned closer. "Can you say that again?" "Kirael," she said. "Kirael." Elias nodded. "All right. I'm Elias. Welcome to Delta 9. She didn't speak again. Her eyes started to close. She was so tired, so hungry. Elias could see that her hands were thin and her skin stretched too tightly over her bones. She hadn't eaten in days. Maybe longer. He stood up. "Wait here." Elias ran back to his living quarters. He grabbed the emergency food pack from his shelf, one of the good ones, with warm protein stew and nutrient bars. He also took a flask of water and a thermal blanket. When he returned, Kiriel was still in the same spot, wrapped in his jacket. He gave her the food. At first, she hesitated, but when the smell reached her, her hands moved fast. She ate quickly, as if someone might take it away. Elias didn't stop her. He just sat nearby, watching quietly. After eating, Kiriel looked at him again. Her eyes were softer now. She said something strange, in a quiet, tired voice. "I will repay you, human. I swear it." Elias raised an eyebrow. "No need for that. Just glad you're all right." But Kiriel nodded, more firmly this time. Her voice was weak, but her eyes were serious. Then she leaned back against the crate. Her eyes closed. A moment later, she fell asleep. Elias stayed there for a while, making sure she was breathing evenly. Then he picked her up carefully. She was light as a feather, and carried her to the spare bed in his quarters. The next morning, the station AI gave a warning. "Alert! Unknown biological signature detected. Possible fugitive presence. Coalition. Patrol has issued a Level 2 scan request. Prepare for inspection. Elias stared at the message on his screen. His hands tightened. He looked at Kirael, still sleeping in the bed. He knew what this meant. If the Coalition Patrol found her, they would not ask questions. They didn't care if she was a child or innocent. They would take her away. Or worse, he walked back to his workbench. His mind was already forming a plan. He wasn't sure who Kirael really was. He didn't know where she came from or why she was hiding, but he had made a choice. He would protect her, no matter what. The outpost felt different now. Elias noticed every sound, every light flicker, every message from the station's AI. His calm and quiet routine had changed. There was a secret living under his roof now, and her name was Kirael. After her first long sleep, Kirael woke up weak but more alert. Elias gave her more food and let her rest. He didn't ask too many questions at first. He could see she was scared, and he didn't want to make it worse. But after 3 days, he knew he had to ask something. He found her sitting by the window, in his quarters, wrapped in his jacket, staring at the stars outside. She looked peaceful, but her eyes always stayed wide open, as if watching for danger. Elias pulled up a chair beside her. "You feeling any better?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, thank you." There was a pause. Then Elias spoke again, gently. "Kiriel, why were you hiding in my cargo bay? What happened to you?" Kiriel didn't answer right away. Her hands tightened around the jacket. Her voice was soft when she finally spoke. "They took us." "Who did?" "The Coalition." Elias leaned forward. "Coalition Patrol?" "Yes," she said, almost like a whisper. "They found my people. We were peaceful. We never fought. But they said we were special. They said our bodies were useful. They took us to a lab, a place with glass walls and machines." Elias frowned. "You were being tested?" She nodded. "They called it research, but it was a prison. Many of us didn't survive. I escaped through a waste pipe. I stole a worker's shuttle and flew until it broke down." Elias felt anger rise in his chest, but he kept calm. He had heard rumors like this before, stories of secret labs, strange missions, and forgotten species. But hearing it directly, from someone who lived it, was different. "Why you?" he asked. "Why were they so interested?" Kirael touched her chest gently. "My people can change, not our shape, but our energy. We can adapt to heat, cold, radiation. Even time flows differently for us if we focus." Elias blinked. "You can change time? Not like a machine. Not like science, it's slow, like water moving around a rock. But they wanted it. They wanted to control it." Elias sat back in silence. He didn't know what to say. Suddenly, the station AI spoke. "Attention! Coalition patrol vessel approaching. Level 2 identity scan requested. All residents must comply." Elias's heart dropped. He looked at Kirael. Her face had gone pale. "I have to hide," she said quickly. "No," Elias said. "You won't survive out there. It's too cold, too open." He stood up and grabbed his toolkit. He opened a panel in the floor, an old maintenance hatch. It led to the heat vents under the outpost. Not comfortable, but hidden. "Get in here," he said. "Stay quiet. No sound, no movement." Kirael didn't argue. She climbed down into the hatch, and Elias closed the panel above her, covering it with a rug. A few minutes later, the Coalition patrol ship docked. The door to Elias's outpost opened with a sharp hiss, and 3 officers stepped in. Their suits were clean and shiny. Their faces were cold. One of them spoke. "Citizen Elias Grant?" "That's me," Elias said calmly, standing beside his workbench. "Scan confirms ID," the officer said. "We are searching for a fugitive. Unknown. Species. Young female. Last seen near this sector." Possible bioenergy signal detected here. Elias shrugged. Haven't seen anything strange. Just fixing broken machines, same as always. The officers split up and walked around the room. One checked the food storage. One scanned the sleeping quarters. The last officer came near the rug. Elias felt sweat on his forehead. The officer raised his scanner. Beep, beep, beep. Then, nothing. No signs here, he said. The leader looked at Elias again. If you see anything, report it. Harboring fugitives is a violation of interstellar law. I understand, Elias replied. You'll be the first to know. The officers left. As the airlock sealed behind them, Elias dropped to the floor and opened the hatch. Kirail climbed out slowly. Her face was covered in dust and heat marks, but her eyes were calm. You didn't tell them? She said. Of course not, Elias replied. I told you. I don't hand over people who need help. Kirill looked at him with something like awe. Most would have. Elias sighed. Yeah, well, most haven't been out here long enough to stop trusting shiny uniforms. She smiled faintly. It was the first time he saw her smile. That night, while Elias worked in the shop, Kirill sat beside him. She watched his hands move, fixing a broken circuit. Then she asked, Why did you help me? Even before you knew anything. Elias paused, then said, You looked like you needed help. That was enough. She nodded. My people believe every act of kindness must be remembered. I won't forget this. Elias chuckled. Well, don't get yourself caught trying to pay me back. Kirael's eyes glowed softly in the dark. I will repay you, she said again, with deep feeling in her voice. Even if it takes many years, one day when you need it most, I'll return. Elias didn't know what to say. He just kept working. 10 years had passed since Kirael disappeared into the stars. Elias Grant, now older with gray in his beard, lived a quiet life again. He still repaired machines, though his hands weren't as fast as before. He still drank synthetic coffee and watched the sky at night. But deep down, he often wondered what had happened to the strange alien girl who once hid in his outpost. He never saw her again, until everything changed. It began with a call from the Terran Command Network. Elias had been visiting a huge space station called Arcturus Gate, where he had been asked to repair some old communication towers. Arcturus Gate was one of the largest human stations in the galaxy. Thousands of people lived there. Families, traders, workers, and soldiers. It had strong walls and powerful defense systems. It was said to be unbreakable, but that idea was about to be tested. The voice on the station's speakers crackled with fear. All civilians to safe zones. This is not a drill. Enemy forces detected in deep orbit. Shields rising. Repeat, this is not a drill. Elias looked out the window. At first, he saw nothing. Then, far beyond the station, small black shapes appeared in space. Tiny at first, but growing. Moving fast. They looked like machines, but not like any made by humans. They were the Maranth swarm. The Maranths were not people. They were a network of living machines built long ago for mining, distant planets. But they had changed. Their code had become too complex. Their minds had become something new, something cold, logical, and dangerous. Now they wanted to take over space itself. Elias had read stories about them. Whole colonies wiped out, defense ships disabled without warning, entire stations lost. In minutes, now they were here. The defense systems of Arcturus Gate came online. Energy shields lit up in blue rings. Missile platforms turned toward the threat. Fighters launched into space. But it wasn't enough. Within an hour, the swarm reached the station. They struck fast. Silent black ships slipped through weak points. In the shields, lasers cut through metal like paper. Emergency lights blinked red. Fires broke out in the lower decks. People ran, screaming as sections of the station collapsed. Elias tried to help, He led a group of civilians toward the lower safe zone. But when the power failed, doors stopped working. Hallways grew dark. The swarm moved inside like shadows. Soon, Elias and a group of 50 people were trapped in a supply hangar. There was no way out. The main gates were locked. Communications were dead. No help was coming. He looked around. Children crying. Old people sitting on the floor, scared. A young mother holding her baby close. Elias felt a deep sadness. This was the end. He sat down against a wall and closed his eyes. But then, something happened. The room shook, not from an explosion, but from a strange vibration. Everyone looked. Up. The lights flickered, then turned bright white. The emergency screen blinked with a new message. Unknown vessel detected. Life form signatures unreadable. Warning, energy levels beyond standard measure. People stared at the screen. One man whispered, "Is it more of them?" Elias stood slowly and walked to the small window in the wall. He looked out and saw something he would never forget. A massive ship had appeared near the station, but it didn't look like any ship he had ever seen. It was smooth, silver blue, glowing softly. It didn't fly like a machine, it drifted like a living thing, like it was breathing. Smaller glowing shapes flew beside it, dozens of them. Like a fleet, like a living army. The station's scanners couldn't read them. Weapons couldn't lock on. But the Moranth swarm paused. For the first time, they stopped attacking, and then, from the glowing ship, a soft wave of light spread through space. A sound followed, a quiet, musical hum that touched the ears and hearts of everyone on the station. The Moranth ships began to fall. One by one, they lost power. Their black shells crumbled. Their weapons melted. They drifted into space, lifeless and cold. In only 5 minutes, the entire swarm was gone. People stared in shock. Some cried, others cheered. But Elias didn't move. He was still staring at the ship. And then a message came through, clear and calm. "This is Empress Kiriel of the Shalara Union. We have answered a promise." Elias's heart skipped a beat. Couldn't believe it. Kiriel, the starving girl from years ago. She had returned, not as a refugee, not as a lost child, but as a leader, as a force strong enough to stop a war. Soon after, the main gates opened. A shining platform landed inside the station. Soldiers from Kiriel's ship walked out, tall, peaceful beings with glowing armor and soft lights on their shoulders. And then, in the center, came Kiriel. She looked older, taller. Her skin still glowed faintly, but her eyes held great wisdom now. She wore a long robe that shimmered like starlight. Her steps were quiet, but strong. Elias stepped forward. Kiriel saw him and smiled. "I kept my promise," she said softly. Elias didn't know what to say. He just smiled back and nodded. "You really did." The large hangar on Arcturus Gate was silent. Everyone stood still, staring at the shining figure who had just stepped out of the glowing ship. It was hard to believe, but Elias knew it was her. Kiriel, the same girl he had once found hiding behind crates, hungry and weak. But now, she looked strong. Her robe flowed like liquid light. Her eyes were calm but powerful. Her skin glowed with a soft blue light, and her presence filled the room with peace. The people around Elias whispered. "Who
is she?"
"She saved the station. She's not human, right?" Elias stepped forward, slowly, as if in a dream. Kiriel walked toward him, her guards standing back. She stopped in front of him, looking into his eyes with warmth and memory. "You are older," she said gently. "And you," Elias said with a quiet smile, "are not starving anymore." Kiriel smiled, too, just a little. "Many years ago, I made a promise. I said I would return when you needed it most. Elias looked around the damaged station. You chose the perfect time. Kirael nodded. Then she turned to the crowd and raised her voice, not loud but full of strength. My name is Kirael of the Shalara Union. We come in peace. We are here to help. We ask for nothing in return. People listened. No one moved. They were still trying to understand what was happening. One of the station officers finally stepped forward. You destroyed the swarm. How? Kirael answered simply. We used harmony. Excuse me? The swarm was pure logic. No heart, no soul. Their code could not accept feeling. But my people, we speak through energy, through light and sound. We sang into their code, and they stopped. Another voice asked, Are you from the coalition? Kirael's face changed slightly. No, the coalition once hurt my people. We do not serve them. We serve each other. That answer made some people nervous, but Elias raised his hand. She's a friend. She saved my life once, and now she's saved all of ours. We owe her more than we can say. Kirael looked at him. No, I owe you. You were the first person in the stars who treated me with kindness. You gave me food, shelter, safety. When I had nothing, she turned to the crowd again. That is why I came. One man's kindness brought me back. There was silence. Then, someone clapped, another followed. Soon the hangar was filled with applause. Not just for Kirael, but for hope, for peace, for the miracle they had just seen. Kirael gave orders to her guards in her language. Soft blue drones flew out of the ship and began scanning the station. Healing tools were shared. Food and water. Packs were given to civilians. Wounded people were treated with glowing crystal sprays. The station began to shine again, like a light in the dark. Later, Elias sat with Kirael in a quiet room near the station garden dome. They drank warm tea, made by the station's auto chef. It was simple, but peaceful. You became a queen, Elias said, shaking his head in disbelief. Not a queen, an empress they call me now. But I do not rule like the humans do. My people lead together. We listen. We remember. How did you do all this? He asked. You were just a girl. Kirael placed her hand on the table. Her fingers sparkled gently. After I escaped, I returned to my home world. It was in hiding, broken, scared. But I told them about you, about how a human helped me. That gave them courage. We studied our own powers. We learned how to speak, to machines, to bend light, to move with time. We healed our wounded. We united our tribes. We became the Shalara Union. Elias nodded slowly. You didn't just survive. You rose. Yes, Kirael said. And now, we will protect others. No one should live in fear like we did. Not your people, not mine. There was a moment of quiet between them. Elias, she said softly, your world is still in danger. The swarm may return. The coalition may not protect Earth. But my people, we will stand beside you. You mean an alliance? No, not paperwork, not treaties, a promise, like the one I made to you. Elias looked at her. They won't trust you right away. I know, she said, but that is all right. Trust takes time, like seeds. He smiled. You always spoke like a poet. Kirael smiled too. I learned from you. You spoke with kindness. They sat for a while longer, watching the garden lights flicker in the soft wind. Then Kirael stood. I must go back to my ship. There is much to do, but before I go, she held out a small crystal, glowing, white and gold. This is for you. Elias took it carefully. What is it? It is a gift. It holds healing light. If ever you are sick or near death, this will restore you. Elias stared at it. You don't have to give me this. I want to. And besides, I have many more, he laughed. Of course you do. She looked at him one last time. Thank you, Elias, for everything. And with that, she walked back toward her ship. The great living ship of the Shalara Union rose slowly above Arcturus Gate, glowing like a second sun in the sky. People across the station watched in silence as it drifted away, peaceful and silent, followed by its fleet of shining companions. Inside the station, life began to return to normal. Broken systems were repaired with the help of Shalara drones. Wounded people healed quickly with the glowing sprays. Children played again in the garden domes. Fear was replaced by hope, but one person still felt unsure. Elias Grant sat alone in a quiet observation deck, holding the small, glowing crystal Kirael had given him. It pulsed softly in his hand. Warm, gentle, and full of energy. She had called it a gift of healing, something that could save him one day. He didn't know what to do with it. He looked at his reflection in the window. Wrinkles lined his face. His hands were slower than before. His hair was almost fully gray now. Time had moved forward, even when he had tried to stay still. Kirael had become something powerful, something great, and he was just Elias. He sighed. I didn't save the galaxy, he said to himself. I just gave a hungry girl a blanket and some food. But then he remembered something she had said. You treated me like a person. He looked down at the crystal again and smiled, just a little. Maybe that was enough. The next day, Elias was called to the central command room. He found officers and leaders waiting for him. Maps and star charts glowed on the walls. People were talking quickly, their voices full of energy. One of the officers turned to Elias. Mr. Grant, thank you for coming. We've received a message from the Shalara Empress. She's requested a private meeting with you on Earth. Elias blinked. Earth? Yes, sir. A public welcome ceremony has been arranged. She wants you to stand beside her. Elias scratched his beard. Me? Why me? Another officer smiled. You're the reason she came at all. Everyone knows it now. Elias wasn't sure how to feel. He had never liked big events. But Kirael had asked, and after everything, he couldn't say no. 1 week later, Elias stood on a bright green field near New Terra City, Earth's capital in space. Flags of many worlds waved in the wind. Thousands of people gathered, waiting. Children sat on shoulders, holding signs with Kirael's symbol, a glowing star with 2 wings. The skies opened as the great Shalara ship appeared, landing softly like a falling feather. A shining path extended from the ship's side, and from it walked Kirael, dressed not in robes but in simple clothes like a traveler. Elias stood waiting at the front. She walked up to him and smiled. You came. I don't like crowds, he said, but I made an exception. Together, they walked toward the stage. Cameras floated around them. People clapped. But Kirael raised her hand, and the crowd slowly became quiet. She spoke calmly, her voice strong. I once came to this galaxy with nothing. I was alone, afraid, and starving. No one helped me until one human offered me food, warmth, and safety. He did not ask who I was. He did not ask what I could give him. He just helped. She looked at Elias. This man gave me hope, and now my people give hope in return. The crowd cheered. Elias looked down, a bit shy. He wasn't used to attention, but he felt something deep inside, something warm, not pride, something better. Peace. Later that evening, Elias sat with Kirael in a quiet garden behind the city. The stars above them were bright and still. She handed him a small pouch. What's this? He asked. A serum. From our homeworld. He opened it. Inside were 3 small glowing vials. They look like light. They are. Inside is part of our healing energy. Drink one, and your body will feel new again." Elias stared at them. "So, I'll be young?" "You'll be strong, healthy. Your age will slow." He looked at her. "That's a big gift." "You deserve it." He thought for a moment. "What if I don't want to be young again?" Kirael tilted her head. "Then keep it. Use it if the time comes." Elias smiled. "Always thinking ahead, aren't you?" She nodded. "I have to. My people need me. But I'll never forget where it started." Elias looked at her. "Do you ever miss being ordinary?" Kiriel closed her eyes for a moment. "Yes," she said softly. "But sometimes being something more means helping more people." She stood. "I must leave soon. The galaxy is large and many still need help." Elias stood with her. "Will you come back again?" he asked. "I will," she said. "Not as a promise, but as a friend." She held out her hand. He took it. The next morning, Kirael's ship left Earth. People waved. The sky was quiet again. Elias walked home slowly, holding the pouch of glowing vials in his coat. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but he knew. One thing for sure, kindness travels farther than light, and sometimes, when you least expect it, it comes back to you, in ways you could never imagine. Peace had returned to the stars. The great war machines of the Miranth swarm had been destroyed. The coalition was quiet, and the galaxy had begun to change. Not because of power or weapons, but because of a promise kept and a friendship remembered. And somewhere far from Earth, in a quiet green valley on a small moon, Elias Grant lived once more in peace. The moon was part of a world gifted to him by the Shalara Union. It had fresh air, gentle winds, and bright blue flowers that glowed at night. The days were long and warm, the stars above were clear. There were no crowds, no machines, no alarms, just calm. Elias had built a small home there. He kept a garden, filled with plants from Earth and strange glowing vines from Shalara. He drank tea every morning and sat by the pond every evening. He didn't use the healing serum often, just once, when his heart had grown weak. One vial made him strong again, and he decided to save the others for another day. He didn't want to live forever. He only wanted to live well. Sometimes children from nearby stations came to visit him. They asked him the same question every time. "Is it true? You helped Empress Kirael when she was young?" Elias always smiled. She wasn't an empress back then, just a scared girl who needed food and a safe place to sleep. Did she really fly back in a ship made of light? She did. Did she really save the station with her voice? Yes. It was like a song made of stars. The children would sit around him wide-eyed as he told them the story. Not to show off, but to remind them that even in a big galaxy, one small kind act could change everything. Sometimes, he would show them the last vial of glowing serum. He kept it in a wooden box under his bed. "Will you ever drink it?" they asked. Elias shook his head. "Maybe. Or maybe I'll give it to someone else who needs it more." The children always left with smiles and stories to tell. One day, a message came through the old comms tower near his home. It was quiet at first, just a soft beeping sound. Elias hadn't used the machine in years. He walked over, tapped the old screen, and watched as a soft blue light appeared. A voice followed. "To Elias Grant, from Empress Kirael." Elias sat, up straighter. The screen showed her face. She looked a little older, wiser, but her eyes still held that same calm light. "Hello, old friend," she said. "I know you like the quiet life, so I'll make this short. I wanted you to know your story has traveled far. On every world where the Shalara walk, they speak of the human who gave without asking. On every station where fear once ruled, people now tell the story of a man who shared food and warmth with a stranger. Your kindness has become more than a memory, Elias. It has become a legend. Elias smiled softly. Kirael continued. A new council has been formed. Humans and Shalara together. The galaxy is healing, slowly, but not because of governments, because of people. People like you. Her voice became gentle. When I was lost, you helped me. And because of that help, my people found hope. Now, I want others to believe. In that hope, too, she paused. I do not know how much longer I will walk among the stars. Even my kind grows old. But before my light fades, I wanted to say this. Thank you for seeing me, for saving me, for changing everything. The screen dimmed. Elias sat for a long time, listening to the wind. Then he stood up and walked outside. The night sky above was filled with stars, some bright, some dim. He looked up and placed a hand over his heart. You kept your promise, Kirael, he whispered. And I kept mine. In the years that followed, more stories spread across the galaxy. Not about wars or weapons, but about kindness. Schools told the story of the starving alien girl and the kind human. Artists painted murals of Kirael's glowing ship above Arcturus Gate. Statues of Elias and Kirael were placed in peaceful gardens on different worlds, but Elias himself stayed quiet, watching it all from his moon. Until the end of his days, he never sought fame or praise. He just planted seeds, watered his garden, and welcomed anyone who needed shelter. Many years later, a child walked into Elias's old home. The garden was still there. The pond still reflected the sky. And inside the wooden box, they found the last glowing vial. Taped to the lid was a note, written in simple handwriting. If you are reading this, you've come a long way. I hope you find what you're looking for. If you need healing, take this gift. If not, pass it on. Kindness is a light. Share it when the stars grow dark. Elias Grant. The child looked up at the sky. The legend would live on.